We all want our tech stack to work together as one connected ecosystem, as opposed to a bunch of separate islands. Now today we aren't just scanning documents, we're turning Umango into a universal bridge which connects your isolated systems together, completely code-free.
It's the tech tidbit in Umango.
Hey everyone, I'm Kieren, and in today's tech tidbit, I'm going to be demonstrating how to ingest documents from an external system using Umango's API upload connector. We're going to process those documents and metadata, and then we're going to push them into a completely separate platform using our web request export connector. And before we take a look at the job, let's just have a brief discussion about what the technology is. Firstly, a web request. Think of it as a digital messenger. It doesn't just tap on a door. It carries a very specific instruction and a payload like, take this scanned PDF and save it to this exact folder. Next is the API, which acts as the receptionist for the software we're trying to talk to. The API's job is to greet that messenger, check its ID, which is our security token, and safely hand the file off to the back office. The beauty of an API is that it acts as a universal bridge. It lets Umango securely hand off data without us needing to know a single thing about how that destination software was built or came together. Whether the backend is running C#, JavaScript, or some other programming language, it doesn't matter. The API handles the translation for us. Finally, REST, representational state transfer. If the web request is the messenger and the API is the receptionist, REST is the standardized language they agree to speak to avoid confusion. It uses universally predictable commands, a GET command when we want to pull data in, or a POST command when we want to push our exported files out. Okay, so now that we have a better understanding of what a web request is, let's take a look at the job that we'll be working with in Umango. You can see that we've got one import connector attached to this job, which is our API upload connector. Okay, so very simple. We've got some instructions around how to send a web request to this connector. And we're also given a unique token, which we can refresh at any point. And this acts as our access key or password into this connector and or job. So if you're a web request veteran or you're looking to get into web requests, understanding how to configure and test them, a tool that you'll most likely come across is Postman. Okay, so we'll be using Postman to send a web request over to Umango. And we need to configure this so that we're sending a post request. I'm going to grab this endpoint here from Umango, paste that into Postman. All right, so our URL looks good. We need to make sure that we're providing a token header with our access token here. All right, and you can see that I've provided some other headers. We've got a file name, and we've also got a properties header, which we have a simple JSON object inside of. Okay, now it's worth noting that any business system or piece of software that can send a web request can now talk to Umango via the API upload connector. All right, so we'll save this one off and we'll head over to our export destination. So we've configured our import connector. All right, we know that our document's going to be coming from an external business system. In our case, that's going to be Postman. All right, and Postman will be providing a web request to our API, which we're going to ingest, we're going to process, and we're also then going to push this out into another business system, which will be a Pocket Host. Okay, so if we head over to Pocket Host briefly, you can see here I've got two repositories set up, which contain nothing at the moment. Now, Pocket Host provides us with a public API that we can interact with. Okay, so I want to get documents into this system. Umango doesn't have a connector for it. Well, we have a web request connector that you can use, okay? This will look quite similar to Postman. So if you're setting up the web request connector and you have used Postman in the past, you'll be able to get your head around this pretty quickly. But looking at the connector, we've got three different tabs. We've got a parent web request tab, which we'll have a look at. So I've got one web request set up here, okay? And this is our auth request. Now, typically when interacting with an external API, we'll need to authenticate before we can then make subsequent requests into that API. And typically we'll authenticate and get an access token, which will then provide in the authorization header of subsequent requests. So in this case, I'm sending over a body, which is a username and password, all right? And on response, we'll get some kind of JSON object back, okay? We can deal with that JSON object in a number of ways. We can use regex to extract the data from it that we require, or in this case, we can use XPath. So if I just get rid of this XPath and we test the request, you'll see that our authorization endpoint from Pocket Host provides us with a bunch of information in the form of JSON. A lot of this we don't need. Now, looking at this JSON, I can see we've got a token sort of nested in this object, all right? And I can access that via XPath using /token. So if we test this again, you can see there that I've captured the value of that access token, and we can then inject this into web requests which are configured after the parent request. So we just need to make sure we remember the name of our request, which is auth. We'll head over to our lookup requests. Okay, so with a lookup request, we can configure a zone to allow the user to actually browse or search some data from the API during processing. Okay, so we need to make sure that we've got an export field configured as a zone, and then we can attach a lookup request to that zone. All right, in this case, I'm providing an authorization header, and we're using the result of our auth parent request, making sure that we've actually selected that auth request as our parent. And in this case, we're dealing with quite a complex JSON response, okay? We only want the user to see the name of the collection that they're going to be uploading to, not all the other sort of system variables and jargon that they're not really interested in. So we're using XPath again, and all we're interested in is the name of the collection. All right, we'll see this in action shortly. So we'll save off that request, and we'll take a look at our third and final request, which is our upload. Okay, so again, we are merging in the value of our collection lookup from the previous web requests, okay, so that we can actually select the collection that we're hoping to upload to. All right, and again, we are also providing an authorization header, and we're passing in the result of our authorization parent request. And in the body, I'm providing the file as a document, base64 encoded, and then we've got some metadata which we're also supplying. We'll see this at the end when we export a document. Let's save off that connector. Let's turn on job services. Okay, so enabling job services is going to open up our API to the net or the local area network, so we can actually start sending web requests to it. Let's get Postman back open, and let's hit send. Okay, so we've got a successful response from Postman, some action happening inside of Umango. You can see we've created a batch. Let's process this batch. All right, so it looks like we've got an invoice here. Okay, if I zoom out, it does look like an invoice. So I want to make sure that I'm popping this invoice into our invoices collection in Pocket Host. And you can see here that by using the collection lookup zone we configured earlier, we've got a bunch of options we can select from. We're going to look for the collection invoices. I'm going to save that off. Okay, we're going to head over to Pocket Host. As you can see, we have no invoices as of yet. I'm pretty sure if I refresh this page, we're going to see there we've obtained a file. Let's click on that. Okay, so we've got some metadata here, which came from our API upload connector. You can see here in Postman, all right, those properties, the file name have been reflected in this metadata. And we also have the invoice that we sent over from Postman. Beautiful. So there you have it. We just use Umango to bridge two completely separate systems via the power of a web. Now, if your business system can send a web request, Umango can ingest that, process the file and the data, and push it out into another external system which has an API attached to it. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. And if you had any questions around how to set up web requests within Umango, please reach out to us. We'll see you in the next video.